Hi, my name is Matthias Rose, and this is a brief introduction to Moksha Tantra. And I'm going to begin with a couple of words on Tantra itself, which began in ancient India as a subjective science of human consciousness. The idea being to understand, or more than cognitively understand, to awaken to the fullest experience of what it can be to be conscious by a process of conducting experiments, drawing conclusions. This science of consciousness in ancient times led to a transformation of a variety of religious and spiritual practices. But in contemporary times, if you go looking for Tantra, odds are you're going to stumble upon books about sex filled with collections of sex positions and tips on breathing during sex. So what is Tantra? Is it this spiritual practice around consciousness, or is it some kind of teaching around sacred sexuality? Well, in Moksha Tantra, my answer is both. In classical era Tantra, not everybody who practiced Tantra was interested in this path of awakening to fullest consciousness, which is an undertaking that requires considerable investment and very little payoff, at least as some explain it. However, everybody can benefit from leading a more effective, richer, more delightful life with all of the constraints and impediments that prevent us from living our fullest and best self fallen away. The word moksha means liberation, and in particular it means liberation from those constraints, those conditioned reactions that we develop as children growing up in our society, in any society. And when we are liberated from those patterns that control us and are able to live in a freedom of our fullest self and most conscious experience, then yes, sex, for one, gets a lot better. So do many other things. But in fact, our culture lacks good teaching around sacred sexuality. So the sexual component is actually quite important and quite relevant. It was there in the ancient teachings, albeit as a small portion of the whole. And it may be overemphasized by some schools and some teachers in our era, except for the fact that this is what our culture, one of the things that our culture desperately needs. If you want to get physically fit and alive in your body, there are yoga classes everywhere. Yoga was originally developed within Tantra as a form of opening our body to the full flow of energy. If you want to develop a mindfulness practice, there are dozens of different ways, schools, traditions, in virtually every city in America that are offering mindfulness training, either within Buddhist contexts or completely without any religious background at all. Tantra, however, brings the embodied practices of yoga and mantra and yantra and the mindfulness practices of meditation and the sexual practices that are unique to Tantra as a way, all as tools of wakening us up, wakening our consciousness up to its greatest possible expression. And in Moksha Tantra and in videos to come, we'll talk about some of these techniques that cross the boundary between classical lineage Tantra and contemporary sexual Tantra.